across the area, growing signals that we need to pay close attention to. I'll have the latest in Weather Extra.
Plus, the rep from Alabama Power is joining us in studio to talk about how the company is getting ready to handle this weekend's winter storm so you can stay warm. Plus, how the rest of the country is dealing with what seems to be one winter storm after another, with more on the way.
Live on your side. First Alert Weather Extra starts right now.
And we welcome you to Weather Extra Tania. We certainly have a lot to talk about today. And this is one of those events where a little bit of snow is one thing, but when you start talking about ice and freezing rain, that is a big concern.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking dangerous conditions and major road impacts. So I think that this episode right here is what people need to tune into to know how they can prepare ahead of this winter event.
Well, definitely one of those setups where if the forecast trends the other way, no complaints, right? Because we don't want ice and freezing rain. But here we go. Right now, we are seeing winter storm watches being placed from Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, parts of Louisiana. This is going to be a storm with far-reaching impacts. And I mentioned this in the last show that multiple states right now are dealing with this and figuring this thing out, the kind of wintry precipitation. This will have far-reaching impacts Friday through Tuesday, Wednesday next week. As for us, our confidence is increasing in a significant winter storm threat beginning Friday. All modes of precipitation possible. Greatest concern is that risk of freezing rain. Model telling us that we've got this shallow layer of cold air. We kind of set up in that perfect zone to where rain could fall, but it freezes on contact. It's shallow freezing layers. So what we end up with is freezing rain in those situations, just like what you see in this picture. It collects on tree limbs. And, you factor in a half inch of rain, that adds hundreds of pounds of weight. So you're talking about snapped tree limbs and also the possibility of power outages with just a quarter inch of freezing rain. And that's what we've got to plan for. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but you don't want to be at the last minute trying to get prepared if we start to see that accumulation happening Friday night and into Saturday. Right now, temperature-wise, we're already down to freezing at Gadsden. It's going to be a cold night, freezing temperatures. No icy weather expected for tonight. Now, we will start to see some rain move in. Here's tomorrow and into Thursday. You can see that next front bring a chance of rain. But notice even after the front moves through, we still have some overrunning precipitation. And that's the concern is we get this very moist west to southwest flow, a lot of moisture overrunning the cold air, and a wave comes up as the temperatures drop into the freezing range Friday night and into Saturday, and you can see the transition. Now, typically, you look at a map like this, the blue represents snow, the pink represents more of a wintry mix of sleet, snow, and freezing rain. Further south, there's a greater chance of some freezing rain happening, and there's a look at 10 o'clock Saturday morning. What are the chances that this could trend north? We see that happen a lot of times. One of the big concerns I have is this very strong Arctic high that's across the northern part of the country. One of the higher pressure levels I've seen, 1050 millibars, something like that. It's tough to move it, and with that cold, dense air dropping southward, that's probably why we're seeing these models so consistent here, showing at least North Alabama in the possibility. Now, what you're seeing right here, this is some of the brand new data. We're starting to get into some of the medium range model. We've been showing you the past couple days global data, but now some of the short-term guidance is starting to line up with global data. And look at that swath of heavy snow. I mean, it goes from all the way back to parts of Texas, across Nashville, back in towards Richmond. Some significant snow accumulations possible in that part of the country there, tracking to the north. And here's some of the freezing rain totals from the latest run of the GFS model. You can see it showing some staggering numbers there. Don't know if these levels will be quite as high, but even if it's a fraction of this, as you can imagine, this would have some significant impact. So again, it's not just the precipitation. We got to be prepared for the cold that comes with this. A good chance we'll see single-digit low temperatures in a few areas by next Tuesday morning and into next Wednesday morning. So certainly a big-time Arctic blast across the area. Greatest chance for seeing snow with this. Further north you go, where the cold air is a lot deeper. Once this wraps up, there's a chance we may see a transition back over to maybe a little bit of sleet or snow based on what we're seeing right now. But we need to watch for that risk of ice again across the heart of the area coming up this weekend. Right now, look for Montevallo, they're showing 40 degrees, dew point at 13. It's very dry. The weather's going to change quite a bit. We'll be seeing that rain come back tomorrow, but temperatures by that point will be milder. But we have a lot to talk about. As we noted, we're going to be talking with Alabama Power on how they're preparing, getting ready for this weekend and what's to come. We certainly will have much more on the 10-day forecast as we continue right here. Stay with us.
Well, welcome back into First Weather Extra. Meteorologist Tania Michelle here. We stay dry tonight. Another cold night ahead of us. Take a look at morning temperatures for your Wednesday. We're talking about some 20s on the map and some areas in the low 30s. 31 in Tuscaloosa, 26 in Walker County, 21 though in Etowah County. It's still going to be a cold start to the day, but I definitely recommend you enjoy tomorrow afternoon. Although there could be some rain around, it's going to be some of the warmest temperatures we're going to see in a long time after this point. Highs tomorrow in the 50s, 53 in Jefferson County, 55 in Tuscaloosa. You're still going to need a sweater and a jacket during the day, and especially during the evening. It's going to be cold because of the rain and the clouds, so just be prepared for that. But as we near our first low weather day, starting Friday evening, here's what you need to do now to prepare. Prepare for power outages and power loss, meaning have those backup power battery sources and things like that. Start thinking about what you need ahead of our weekend storm. Protect those pipes and pets. Make sure you start thinking about ways to protect your home, insulating those pipes, grabbing the necessary materials for that, and making sure your pets have a nice warm place to be. Stock up on essentials, definitely some water, medications, and plan to stay off the roads if we see this ice panning out to be as catastrophic as it's showing on some of our weather models. We want you to be over prepared, not scared, and we're going to keep you up to date right here. And some of the best ways to be prepared is to check in with us right now, because Wes is about to talk to an expert with Alabama Power on ways that you can protect yourself ahead of this weekend's winter storm.
Yeah, that's right, Tania. You know, one of the biggest concerns this weekend has to do with the power outages and just a little bit of ice. It can cause some big problems over widespread areas. Anthony Cook is with Alabama Power, and Anthony's joining us now to talk about how they're preparing for this weekend's system. And you've got to stay out ahead of something like this, Anthony, right? I mean, it's one of those situations where I mentioned this earlier. If the forecast, if it ends up being all rain, I'm good with that,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about how you guys are sort of ramping up and making preparations. It's been a while since we've had an ice threat around here.
That's right. That's right. And so our number one value is to make sure that our customers are safe and our employees are safe. And so we want customers doing everything they can in advance of the storm to be prepared. Whenever we have any type of severe weather, we're all hands on deck. But as you know, ice presents on its own particular challenges. And so in a couple of ways, or about 3 different ways in particular, when you have power lines that are weighted down with ice, that could cause the power lines to sag or to break. That's going to lead to outages. The other challenge, particularly out to Alabama, is that we have more vegetation than almost every other state in the country. And so almost 70% of Alabama is forested. In fact, vegetation is the leading cause of outages every year for storm-related outages in Alabama.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when you have limbs that ice over, they become brittle, they break off, they come into contact with your power lines, that leads to outages. And so the third thing is that you have icy roads, which leads to hazardous travel, which means it may take a little longer for our crews to get to the source of your outage. So we just thank our customers for being patient with us as we work to get the power back on.
Is that one of your biggest concerns going into the weekend? What are some of the biggest concerns?
Well, the biggest concern is outages and protracted outages, outages that could last a longer time because the source is harder to get to because of the ice.
So if you are in a neighborhood where you have underground power, I mean, this is something that still could impact those areas. Folks in those areas need to be prepared as well.
Absolutely. This brings into the conversation about our how we prioritize restoration. So we have to start with our larger equipment, the transmission lines. And so if those transmission lines are down, it doesn't matter where you are, you're not getting power. So we have to start there. And so even if you have underground power or underground lines in your neighborhood, there still could be outages.
Have you guys like looked into, I know the most recent, I believe Texas, we had the big ice storm that happened out there. From a regional standpoint, are there preparations to maybe have some resources come in to help you guys out
Sure.
in the event?
Well, we're always all hands on deck whenever we have any type of weather event that's approaching, but we also have partnerships with other utilities so that we can get the assistance that we need when it's necessary, and we also offer that assistance when other utilities need it.
So do you guys position teams out as this begins, so they're already in some of these places where we may have a report of freezing rain happening, or do you just wait until I know you're kind of chasing, when you have ice developing, you're sort of chasing the storm, right? So do you kind of just wait in position until this thing's done?
Well, what we want to do is we want to monitor the forecast. And as the forecast becomes more crystallized, it gives us better information about where to be and how to stage and be prepared for where the weather might hit hardest.
What do people need to do if their power goes out?
So what we want to do is encourage our viewers or our customers to begin getting prepared now. So do things like make sure your phones are charged. All your devices are charged. Make sure you have flashlights. Make sure you have extra batteries. Make sure you have a stock of 2 or 3 days worth of food. Make sure you include some non-cook items in the food that you prepare. Get clothing and blankets and hats and gloves, those type things, have those on hand. Also, as was mentioned already, you want to protect those pipes. Leave the faucet dripping a little bit, leave the cabinet doors open so that those pipes don't freeze, things like that. We also recommend our customers go to alabamapower.com/winter weather, where we have a lot of information there about things customers can do to prepare.
All right, Anthony. Well, Anthony Cook with Alabama Power, we certainly appreciate you spending some time with us here today, and certainly head over to that website for some preparations.
That's right.
And we'll be talking a lot more with you guys as we get closer to the weekend. Again, hopefully this trend's a better way, but it's best to be prepared and ready.
That's right. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
That's right, Anthony. Okay, we'll be back. We'll talk more about the forecast coming up. Stay with us. More Weather Extra after the break.
Explore the wonders of weather with Weather in the Classroom. Scan the QR code now to help your kids soar to new heights with Soar with 6.
Well, as you know, we're preparing for a potential winter storm this weekend, and one of the most challenging things we can do as forecasters is determine precipitation type. So what falls from the sky, what's going to happen? Well, let's show you the different forms of precipitation. As you know, you're familiar with rain. We get it all the time. Usually you have very cold air aloft, and that cold air originally starts as a snowflake, and as it moves into a large column of warm air, it melts and becomes rain. So we're used to that all the time. However, one thing that we're really worried about going into this weekend is freezing rain. What is that? Well, you have your clouds, you have your moisture, cold air aloft starts as snow, and then there's a shallow or aloft, a little bit of a warm layer. So the snow melts as rain, and then at the surface, a shallow layer of very cold air of 32 degrees or colder, it falls and makes it in contact. Super cooled water droplets, and once it hits the surface, whether it's a mailbox, your car, a power line, a tree, it becomes ice. And as that rain continues to fall, the ice starts to grow, and ice is very heavy, and it starts to weigh those trees down and those power lines, and that's where you get some mega concerns when it comes to power outages and, of course, travel concerns. So freezing rain is definitely big problem around here. Sleet, not as bad as freezing rain. You have a column of cold air, and that warm air that's aloft is a little bit smaller. So when it falls down, it starts to refreeze a little bit into little pellets of ice. And if you stand outside and you hear it sleeting, it's just a staticky noise, and it's kind of a sharp pain if you're standing outside in it. So that is sleet. It can create some slippery surfaces, but it's a little bit more manageable. Finally, if we got snow, the entire column is very cold and below freezing, and that's where you get the snowflakes. And there's a chance at the very end of this event, we may finish it off with some snow. So we're going to be watching those temperatures at the surface and aloft. And obviously, that will affect those precipitation types. But one thing to let you know, when it comes to freezing rain and ice is very heavy. Anything over a quarter of an inch or more is going to likely result in power outages. If we get a quarter of an inch of ice, it's going to weigh power lines up to 250 pounds. And if we get a half of an inch of ice accumulation, it's like adding 500 pounds to those power lines. And what's going to happen? They go down and you lose power. So ice, very concerning for us, something we'll be watching. And of course, we'll fine tune that forecast over the next several days.
All right, Matt, thanks a lot. You got to go back to 1996 when we had a big-time ice event. It was mostly an impact across East Alabama that resulted in freezing rain, ice storm kind of setup. But the big one that impacted the state, you got to go all the way back to 1982. Now, I know Snowmageddon was a mess, but during that event, it was snow that fell and then froze. We're talking about an ice event with freezing rain. It's been decades since we've seen that kind of setup, and that's why you don't see that often. We'll watch the data around here just in case, as Matt was noting, this switches back more towards maybe some sleet or some snow mixing in, which would be make a big difference. Now, if you recall back in 2011, we had an event where it looked like it was going to be a lot of freezing rain, and that's what ended up happening. So we'll watch how this plays out. Again, it would be the weekend. Hopefully it transitions more towards a rain event. That's a best case scenario for us. But as we look at the setup right now through tomorrow, I've got the time at the top of the screen. This is a look at 4 o'clock tomorrow, and you see we start to get some rain moving in. We'll see maybe some showers through tomorrow night and even through Thursday morning. But the big problems arrive as we go to Friday at 11 o'clock. And I want to move the map here because I do have some of the surface features turned on to show you one of the big troublemakers behind all this. So if we look at the big picture view, you see that classic look with the Gulf system. And look at the far-reaching impact. I mean, this will extend from near New Mexico all the way across Texas, all the way across Alabama, and into parts of the Carolinas. North of this, that thing right there, big Arctic high, extremely high pressure levels, is going to be pumping in that cold air from the north as this throws the moisture in from the south. So it's that combination of the cold. The thing is, with the way the models are advertising the strength of this high, is this a setup where we could see all this trend to the north? That's the big question mark. This may hold, and that's why we're seeing a lot of the consistency in the models. Look at Saturday by 10 a.m. I mean, we're talking from southwest U.S. all the way to the east coast, and we got these waves lining up that will generate that precipitation. So this certainly has the possibility of being not only a ice event, but maybe a 2 or 3 day ordeal as far as wintry precipitation here across Alabama. So tonight's lows, you can see we're already getting close to freezing in some areas to the north and east. We'll drop below freezing, but we won't have any issues because tomorrow when the rain arrives, you can see by the afternoon, temperatures will be in the 50s. So yes, tomorrow we will see some rain. Plan for that, some wet weather coming in. Tomorrow night, some showers. Here we go Thursday morning. Temperatures in the 40s and the chance for some wet weather. And just stay tuned as we monitor this setup into Friday as that cold air starts to move in. It's going to be, we don't want to be surprised on Friday, but looks like most of this holds off as far as any wintry weather possibilities until late Friday night and into the day on Saturday. And there's a look at 8 o'clock Saturday morning. And a lot of this, if you look at some of these maps, they show pinks and blues representing where snow could happen, where a wintry mix could happen. But the main thing to pay close attention to are those temperatures. And you can see a lot of 20s and 30s showing up there. Got to watch Saturday. You can see by the afternoon it really starts to pick up. And there could be a period in there where we have some significant glaze developing or freezing rain. Really need to watch East Alabama where some of that colder air could get trapped. Notice some of the data coming in with some higher values. Yeah, you don't see that often. You need to watch it over towards Anniston and areas to the east into early on Sunday. But that's what we're going to be watching for that possibility of an ice storm threat. But watching Sunday and Monday for some leftover precip, maybe in this with a little bit of snow in the mix there by Monday. And then we're talking sub-freezing temperatures. So we did continue that first alert weather day through the middle of next week. And Tania joins us now to talk a lot more about those colder temperatures coming up, Tania. And if we get a lot of snow on the ground, you and I were looking at some of the numbers. We could possibly see some single-digit lows by Tuesday morning and next week. Some of the coldest air since that Christmas Arctic blast we had back in 2022.
Oh, yeah, Wes. I mean, it can be dangerously cold next week. And I think it was a great call to go ahead and remind people of that by calling First Alert Weather Day because it has not been that cold this winter at all. And now this is just one model, and this one is the very aggressive one. But I just want to briefly show you how cold we could be into next week. This is showing January the 27th, Tuesday, 6 p.m., 14 degrees. That is not a wind chill. This is just what one of the models shows as an expected temperature. Now we bring in Thursday morning, seeing some freezing temperatures, but most days next week from this model alone isn't showing us reach above freezing really until after Wednesday of next week. That's why we extended those first weather days. So above average temperatures for the West Coast, but not us here across the Southeast. We'll be 70% chance below average here across central Alabama. That shows us January the 28th through the first few days of February. This is certainly not a system that you just want to sit around and wait for it to pass by. Be proactive. Make sure you're preparing now. Go ahead and get the necessary items and essentials you need for your home. Batteries. Make sure you have flashlights, extra blankets, at least know where they're at. We'll talk more about that winter storm, of course, later tonight at 9 and 10, but we'll be back with First Alert Weather Extra after this short break.
Teachers, promote literacy in your class by scheduling a book reading with WBRC. Scan the QR code now to help your kids soar to new heights with Soar with 6.
All right, Tania, I don't know if they often say with the crescent moon, it tells you the moon's holding water. I don't know, or either, it's kind of like Alice in Wonderland,
Yes, I do know what
two
you're
little
talking about.
eyes there, but that's a live look out there right
Yeah, pretty cool. I
Yeah,
mean, it
really
looks like
cool.
some fire a little bit. Love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Well, no fire here at
No.
home.
Yeah, we're watching, obviously, the weekend. A lot
Cold.
that we're going to be figuring out here. Just know that confidence is increasing. We could see some ice and a possible winter storm, if not for some part of the area, especially North Alabama. But we certainly think around here locally at points there could be some impacts.
Oh, yeah, definitely check in with us tonight for more updates. Latest model runs at 9 and 10.